first slide that's on, we had started with the question of what are your expectations? So any learning designer really contextualizes the learning or the session or the class to the learner's needs. So the idea is that a learning designer must provide opportunities to, so if you're looking at a teacher, the teacher must provide opportunities to students in the course of the class to actually experience learnings in different ways. Um, the idea is also about connecting new ideas to the existing ideas. So for example, if a teacher is going to teach a topic around biodiversity, or um, we have all seen classrooms where children are studying from textbooks, but a topic like biodiversity or of, let's say, a particular area, and so it's important to first understand how much do the children already know. Or it could be about farming, or it could be about even anything to do with simple mathematics. I think the first part of learning design, of constructing any learning design or teaching, is about checking the prior knowledge and connecting the new ideas that the teacher wants to bring into the classroom to the existing ideas that are already present among the children. So that's where, that's what we wanted to just bring in terms of what learning is and what is the role of a learning designer. So Miriam, could we go on to the next slide? Um, so, in order to understand and explore learning design, and learning in a little bit more detail, we are going to show you a video. It's from an Indian classroom, and it's brought by an organization called TESS India, which is deeply engaged in teacher training. It's a classroom of an English classroom of a senior class. So you can just watch it and see, where how learning happens in this classroom. So the teacher is using in English, and there is English commentary in the video. But you will also see the children responding in Hindi, which is the language, which is a local language. But you will get a sense of what is happening, and wherever needed, I will share the translation. Miriam, could you start the video?
Hello students. Good afternoon.
In this secondary school, an English teacher experiments with different types of informal assessment with his large class.
Today we are going to know structure of sentence. Sentence का ढांचा भी हम लोग समझेंगे. And direct and indirect objects. Okay? Understand?
The teacher explains that at the end of the lesson, he will request anonymous feedback on whether his students have understood the lesson. This is a way for students to evaluate their own learning.
हमें क्या क्या समझ में आ गया? तीसरा क्या लिखेंगे? पूरी तरह से समझ नहीं पाए. बिना नाम लिखे जब आपका ये क्लास खत्म हो जाएगा तो इस डिब्बे में डालेंगे. ये तुम्हारी परीक्षा ही नहीं है, बल्कि क्या है, हमारी भी परीक्षा कि हम समझा पा रहे हैं, आप समझ पा रहे हैं या.
So the teacher here basically is going to teach the topic of structure of sentence, and he says that he tells the students, I will do an informal assessment at the end of the class to check whether all of you have understood. So this assessment is for me and not just for you. I would like to get some informal feedback from all of you on what you have understood or not understood. Miriam, please continue.
नहीं.
Earlier in the lesson, the students made 2 cards, one with a tick on and one with a cross on. The teacher tells his students to hold up a tick if they think the answer is right and a cross if they think it's wrong. In this way, by looking around the class, he can quickly check their understanding. If all his students they can compare their answers with those of their peers.
Yes, Ansha?
Mohan is a subject, verb drives verbs, akar object.
Right. Mostly student showing card right.
My sir, subject the my father.
My father.
My
Yeah.
father. Verb sir or sold to sir his car sir object.
Is he right or wrong?
Next, the students do a language drill on direct and indirect objects in English. They are divided into groups and given cards with the words they should use to form sentences. Notice how the teacher uses Hindi to encourage his students' use of English and monitors them to check their understanding and participation.
एक लड़का लिखेगा, 2 लोग जो हैं उसको यदि गलत है तो उसको सही करेंगे.
नहीं हुआ. एक साइड
One child is right and 2 children is correct.
Some subject draws one a pictures object. Sita subject bought me verb address object.
पहले जो हमने ये क्वेश्चंस दिए थे, इसका आंसर आप लिखिए.
Now, it's time for the students to give their anonymous feedback. The teacher will use this to plan his next English lessons.
हैं? लिखा तो आंसर तो लिखिए. Up into this box and go silently one by one. Structure of sentence और direct and indirect, ये मैं मानता हूँ कि उसको जो
According to my assessment, 70 to 75% of my students have understood the key learning points of the lesson.
लगभग वैसा ही है. थोड़ा सा जो हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे कि
My students' feedback is roughly what I expected.
बताएंगे वो पूरे बच्चे समझ जाएंगे. वैसे अधिकांश
Although most of my students have understood how to use direct and indirect objects in English,
दोनों विशेष रूप से
20 to 25% have said they have a problem with understanding this.
आई है. इसमें हम पहले तो ये देखेंगे जो चीज़ नहीं समझ में आया है उसको थोड़ा सा हम अपने टीचिंग
I will try to help them understand by modifying my teaching and incorporating more guidance in my next lesson.
इसी तरह का रखेंगे.
The teacher used forms of assessment that were not inhibiting or embarrassing to his students. How could you use ideas like these to encourage your students to assess their learning in your lessons?
Thank you so much, Miriam. So I just want to request all of you to, type in the chat box, what are your observations from this video about the teacher, about the classroom, and whether there was any learning design that the teacher was following. So you could type in the chat box, and we can discuss the video after that.
Also, to add on to what Dipti said, is that if you feel like you would like to unmute and share verbally, you are very welcome. Please just go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to name some people, and if you feel comfortable, please feel free to share. Anya Obasi, we can see your lovely face there. We'd love to hear your voice. You're giving such amazing answers. We are wondering if you're using ChatGPT to answer some of these. So we'd love to hear some human voices. Come on, people. So Anya Obasi, may I call upon you to share something? Faith, we're looking at you.
Yeah, thanks so much, madam, for giving me the floor. Actually, I'm beside where there is noise. And from the video I've watched, I've really enjoyed the class because it was really interactive. And also, the, the only problem I have with the class is that it was too crowded for the teacher to really carry out a proper assessment, even though he brought out 25% of those, less than 25% of those that never understood the lesson so well, and he plans to improve. So also I love the lesson because it was really interactive and they step up perfectly. Thank you so much for giving me it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Anya, for opening that up. I guess now more people would be inspired to share. Hamdalat, sorry, I'm just really, these names are very new to me. So Hamdalat Dayadu, may I request you to share your opinion? And Victoria, you can also help us pronounce the name correctly, please.
Of course, there are some responses in the chat. I don't know if you've seen them.
All right.
Yeah, we could see them. So we have one response which says that the lesson was generally very engaging. And another which says that the teacher's style of getting feedback from his learner is very accommodating. It makes it easier for all the learners to comfortably say whatever they have understood on whether they have understood the lesson without being shy since it was anonymous. Wonderful, great. That's a great observation. Could you also think about what kind of planning this teacher would have done? Anyone can think and respond. What kind of planning would have gone on in this, that this teacher would have done? The class is participatory. The teacher carried out on-the-spot evaluation of himself and found out that some could not get the lesson and promised to modify his lesson. That's nice. Okay. Anyone else? Can you see any design, any planning, anything that the teacher might have done? Yeah, so group learning, you're right, yeah. Because they were large numbers, so that's why you're right, group learning was being done. Anyone else? Lena? I'm also calling out names now. Grouping the learners, okay. So, and the teacher used flash, word cards, sentence strips to teach, and thrilled about the feedback technique that the teacher adopted. This gives Zoom to the students who are shy or not self-confident to speak about their challenges and knowledge. Great. A lot of responses, a lot of you feel that the feedback process was really nice. That's nice. Anything else? Do you think that the class was engaging? You can answer in yes or no. Was the class engaging? Were the students participating? The teacher engaged the students in a very comfortable manner. That is not disclosing what each group is doing. Okay, some feel that it was not. Yes, grouping the students into smaller units will enhance more groups. Yeah, that's a wonderful observation. Yeah. Okay, so was the classroom participative? You could please unmute and also share. Gina, you have said no. Do you want to share what your reflections are? Gina Alex. Okay, the class was engaging. Do you think learning was happening in the classroom? Was learning happening in the classroom? You can answer again, yes, no, yes. Okay, yes, okay, okay. Why, how did you, like, why do you feel learning was happening in the classroom? What did you see? Yeah,
Can I
wonderful.
talk?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah, with respect to the interactive nature of the class, how the students were responding to the teacher's question, it shows that learning was taking place, actually.
Okay, okay, that's nice. So the students were responding to the teacher, yeah. So there was, and what kind of relation, what kind of environment was there in the classroom? I'm talking about not just not the physical environment, but more of the the socio-emotional learning space, or the environment, that the relationship between the teacher and the student, perhaps.
Water pollution. I'll say this one.
Anyone can unmute and share. Yeah, some students were distracted, true. A lot of students were lost, yeah. So, one. Okay, so we have some mixed answers here. Some feel the class was interactive. Some feels that not really. Some students were lost. Okay, great. So, Miriam, could we go on to the next slide? So what we're looking at really is that, this teacher may not be really the perfect example, but what we are exploring in this whole video is around the need to shift from teaching in a traditional manner to really guiding the learning process in the classroom. Miriam, can we go to the next slide? So when we're looking at teacher-centric and learner-centric design, so typically in the classrooms where it's a teacher-centric design, the teaching process is very rigid. So the teacher might come onto the blackboard, might teach a topic. Let's say that he's teaching fractions. So he might just explain fractions on the board and move on to doing questions from the textbook. Whereas a learner-centric classroom, where the design is more learner-centric, is more fluid. So you will see the use of manipulatives in those classrooms. You'll see a connection to the real world in that classroom. So these kind of differences, so the fluidity of the design is important in a learner-centric classroom. In a teacher-centric class, there was a passive reception of, there will be a passive reception of learning. Even in the video that we saw, perhaps some people sense that some students were not completely engaged. There was an element of passively receiving knowledge. In a very effective learner-centric classroom, the teacher makes a learning design which leads to a lot of active participation. So that's also one of the ways to identify whether a classroom is learner-centric. The next part is that in teacher-centric classroom, knowledge is given and fixed. And in a learner-centric, knowledge is evolving. As you know, a teacher-centric classroom, we focus on the teacher direction and decisions, whereas in a really evolved learner-centric classroom, you'll see a high level of learner autonomy and ownership. So the video that we saw is, like I said, I'm saying that again, is not really a perfect example, because you would realize that the teacher had the complete ownership. There could have been more spaces for the learner autonomy, ownership, and so and generally getting to hear more learner voices. So that's really the difference between what we are talking about, a teacher-centric and a learner-centric learning design. Yeah. So, Miriam, could we go on to the next slide? I think we can go on to the next one. Yeah. Miriam, would you like to take this on?
For sure, thanks. So we'd love to hear your thoughts again. If you could share what practices you are already applying to make your classes more learner-centric, and what are also challenges that might stand in your journey towards becoming a learning designer or having a learner-centric classroom. So we will paste a link in the chat box for Padlet, where we would love if you could put your answers there. You can answer one of the questions or both questions, depending on what you're interested in. But it would be great if you could do it there, so we can have your great answers available to everyone even after the session. If you can't access the link, then you are very welcome to put it in the chat box and we can paste it there later for you. So Shraddha, thank you for sharing the link.
Maybe we can just show the screen on Padlet and then just...
Yes. So here we go. So you can just click on one you would like. Just click on the plus and you can add your answer. So this will come up here, and you can write something. You can share a picture if that helps. Whatever you feel comfortable doing. So we have one answer for challenges in becoming a learning designer, where your lesson planning may take longer. That's understandable. Teacher duties do take quite a bit of time. Excited to see what other answers you have. Can we also just get a thumbs up if you are able to access the Padlet link easily? And remember, you can always answer the questions in the chat box if that's more. Or also unmute and share your answers here. We'd love to hear from you. We've also got an answer for practices in making your classes learner-centric. So group work and role play. Okay, so we've got some answers under challenges. We've got lesson planning may take some time, access to creative design tools in place without internet. That's completely valid. Time factors and availability of resources for sure. And for making classes more learner-centric, we've got group work, offering choice and assignment topics to students. Oh, example, offering a choice in the assignment topics for students. Love that, giving them the space and control over their learning. Grouping students to do a presentation in class or evaluating their performance for adjusted grade. At the end of the presentation, based on the day's topics, oh, you give feedback and you grade them. I like that. Gina, oh yes, Shraddha, thank you for pasting the questions in the chat box. Again, remember that if you'd like to unmute and share your answers, you are very welcome. Or if you'd like to share them here in the chat box.
What do you want?
We have another super important challenge, which is designing the items is not easy. That is a very valid point. You can keep your answers coming in the chat box. Thank you for those of you who have shared already. And remember, you will have access to Padlet after our call is done. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to move on. Do feel free to continue adding things there. So, so we really appreciate, I think I've honestly just been blown away today by the quality of the answers and your thoughts around the videos that we've looked, the video that we watched, your thoughts on learning and learning design, and now your thoughts around practices and the learner-centric practices in the classroom and the challenges. And I think here I'm seeing that you already seem to embody what is at the core of being a learning designer, which is fundamentally shifting from a teacher-centric to a learner-centric approach. And I feel that is the most important thing here. And I think a big part of it is actually centered around the words being used. When you focus on teaching, the verb applies to yourself, rather than focusing on learning, in which case the focus then shifts towards your learner, which helps you think about a learner-centric approach. And it's great to see so many learning designers here on this call already, because everything that you're talking about shows that you all have you are all already learning designers, and you're already doing what you can to apply these in your classrooms. And that's just wonderful to see. So thank you for that. It really is, it starts with that shift, like we're talking about, from thinking of what do I need to do, and thinking about the students, about what they need to learn, or your learners in general. So thank you for sharing. You've really made this such a fruitful, interesting session for everyone. So I guess a round of applause to everyone in this call.
Victoria, this is back to you. And maybe now we can learn a little bit more about, the personal experiences of Miriam and Deepthi as learning designers and as people who've trained teachers to adopt learning design as a practice. So maybe we can just, learn about your experience. So Victoria, back to you, and then we can open it up for question answers. But if at any point in time you have questions coming up, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shraddha. Thank you, Dipsy and Miriam, for the very beautiful, amazing session. Thank you so much, everyone, for interacting also and for sharing the chat and participating in the activities. Now, like we mentioned earlier, this is just the first of 4 episodes in this series. So this is very, very introductory. In the next session, we're going to have more conversations and, more interactive activities that we're going to do as well. Now, if you remember from the introduction, I mentioned that Miriam was a teacher turned learning designer, right? So for some of us, you might not know that learning designers are quite a thing. So aside teaching in the classroom, there are people that just are learning designers, and they even, work outside of the classroom for corporate organizations and all. And there might be some of us here who also have that, that's the urge, and then you want to do something outside of the classroom to also create learning experiences, might be for students but not in the classroom setting, it could be for organizations for their professional development and all. So we'd like to hear from some insights from Miriam and Deepti to share their experiences with us working as learning designers. So I'm going to ask Miriam first. Miriam, I'd like you to please talk about your journey from the classroom to learning design. How did you make that shift? Like, what inspired the shift from teaching in the classroom to becoming a learning designer?
Thanks. That's a great question, Victoria. So I think now that I've had almost 3 years of being outside of the classroom and being employed or working as a learning designer, when I reflect back on my time in the classroom, I think that I'd always had the roots of thinking as a learning designer. And for me, it was really important for my students to have hands-on experiences and to enjoy their lessons, because I've always been a big fan of experiential learning. And I believe that that is always going to be how you learn best, when you have the chance to do things yourself. And when I made the shift to being a learning designer, this was around COVID, because I was getting very frustrated with online school, and it's part of a longer story, but I decided to step back from the classroom, and I wanted to apply my skills in a way where I could help learners with their learning, but I didn't want to be tied down by the school system and moving at the pace that schools expected. And I wanted to create more individualized learning experiences that would directly impact the learners themselves, and maybe not necessarily on the scale of what they were just learning in the classroom, but also to impact them as human beings. And I felt like I might have more space to do that as a learning designer, and take a pause on being a teacher. And when I did make that shift into learning design, it was a little overwhelming at the beginning, because I was in a different setup, and because I'd worked across different schools and countries, it was interesting how school systems were more or less the same. Even if you changed the school or the school system, it was, same, but different. And it was a little bit different from teaching, because I didn't need to think about all these things that I have to think about in the classroom, like the planning, the marking, am I meeting all the learning objectives so I'm not late on, and all the things that I have to do. So that was different, but it also gave me the space, and I was encouraged to think about, instead of what do I need to accomplish, like as the teacher, what do I need to do to get my job done, I started having more space to think about the learner. So I started asking myself questions like, what do I want my learners to take away from, say, this workshop or from this content or whatever it was that I was creating at the time? And how do I want them to feel at the end? So giving, to me, that was the main shift, because I started focusing on the learner and their experiences. Again, I know I keep saying this, rather than focusing on all the things that I need to do just to get my job done. And it is a very subtle shift in perspective, and it took a while for me to repurpose my skills, which I had learned in the classroom, like, you know, the planning, the teaching, the marking, the facilitation, all these things that I knew how to do and that were actually really valuable skills. And just to think about applying them in the context of a learning designer and applying them to a wider context, rather than just thinking on the scale of a classroom and students. An example of something I'm really proud of that happened recently is I recently created a course around something called digital marketing automation software, which 2 months ago I didn't even know existed, and I didn't really fully understand. I still don't fully understand. And I was expected to create a course on it. And while I don't understand digital marketing automation software, I do know how to create learning content. So I could use my skills as a teacher to create an entire course, because I created clear learning objectives. I broke the content down into manageable bits, and I created quizzes, and it you know, what you do planning a lesson in the classroom, I applied it to a wider scale about a topic I didn't really have a lot of information about. And I learned a lot on the way. And in schools, we are surrounded by teachers everywhere. And we're so used to the person in the next room or everyone around us being able to do a lot of what we can do. So, you know, it's normal. It doesn't feel like a big deal being a teacher anymore, because, you know, it's just another day for us. But a big shift for me was realizing when I left the classroom and I started working in places where I was the only person with any kind of background in education or teaching, is that I had been trained for so many years to multitask and be able to put together something really quickly and learn something so I could create content around it and plug into different aspects of a company or a project happening, just because I had gotten so used to doing it in school. So there's a learning designer in every one of us if we think wider than what we've gotten used to thinking. Okay, I'm done now.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for that explanation. Before I ask Dipti a question, are there any persons in the chat that can relate with what Miriam just said? Is there anyone that can relate with her experience? Like, you're currently teaching in the classroom, but you know that you have this urge to go out there and create more learning experiences for people outside of the classroom. Do you have any such person in the room today? You can indicate by raising your hand or just typing a yes in the chat. Anybody like that wants to create something outside of the classroom, people learning experience? You don't want to limit yourself to the classroom. Oh, I see. Olasukome is one of such people. So it's a great thing that you're here today to learn from someone that has, you know, told the path and has experience working in the classroom, and then using all of those background, those experience that she had in teaching, and now creating wonderful experiences for people that are not just subject-based like you currently do in the classroom. Thank you once again, Miriam. So, Dipti, I would like to know, now from your experience, over 22 years in education, in your experience, you've been able to train thousands of teachers in learning design. Now, I would like you to tell us, you know, those things that you think help teachers adopt a learner-centric approach in their teaching. So whenever they are teaching from your experiences, what are those things that you think would help teachers adopt a learner-centric approach so that the classroom is not just all about them, but they have the children as the plan for the activities in the classroom?
Thanks, Victoria. That's a lovely question. And like you said, I've worked with thousands of teachers across many schools, private schools, schools run by the government. And I think the single most, the biggest difference between a teacher um, who's also a learning designer and any other teacher is that the teacher who's also a learning designer, her classes are much, much more impactful. You would typically see that the children have higher learning outcomes. You would see the teacher is also more active in not just her classroom, but with her parents, but with also with her colleagues, with her seniors. And I think what I feel differentiates this teacher from the others is just the fact that she's constantly reflecting and learning. And I always say this to the teachers I work with that the days we stop learning, the day we stop exploring what's happening in the outside world and connecting it into the classroom, the day we stop having a growth mindset, that's the day when we actually stop growing, you know. So a lot of teachers, and you know, um, I go to these classrooms where it's not, you know, the teachers look exhausted, they look tired, they have to manage classrooms. Some classrooms are very huge in numbers. They have to, you know, for little children, they would have to take care of everything. Somehow the tables and chairs are arranged to the classroom displays, to connecting with the parents. You know, it's just like they're working non-stop, and teachers are hardly appreciated for the kind of work that they do. So it's not easy. It's not easy being a teacher. But those who are really, really motivated, uh, you know, they're always learning and they're always exploring the answers to their own challenges. So I would strongly urge all of you who are in schools to explore ways in which you could constantly learn. You can certainly join learning groups like this one. You could also explore, you know, there are a lot of MOOC courses, open courses on Coursera. There's a lovely platform called Edutopia, which has a lot of articles around teaching, learning. So you must constantly learn and reflect on what is happening in your own life, in your own classroom, and bring that back into the classroom. So I would say that for anyone to shift to learning design, it's important to not stop learning. It's important to just continue to grow, continue to learn. And in terms of learning theories, how do you get into learning design? I'm sure we can take up those things in the later sessions, but I think the real work is within, is about wanting to grow, is about wanting to learn constantly. So that's just what I want to share, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Dipsy, for that useful explanation. All right, people, do we have anyone that has question for either Miriam or Dipsy? Do you have any question you want to ask them? If you have a question, kindly raise your hand and I'll call on you to unmute and speak. Anyone wants to ask any question? Anybody? Or you're still thinking about it? Do you have questions for them? Okay, I guess not yet.
Hello.
Oh, Moses. Yeah, Moses, please go on.
Hello.
Hello, Victoria.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I want to ask from those speakers. They have really done well. I really enjoyed their presentations. But the question is, what are the basics? What are the basics of these lesson designers? What are the basics? What are the rudiment aspects one has to master before one can actually say he's doing well in class with learning design? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Moses. So, Dipti and Miriam, who wants to answer the question? I hope you got his question.
Yeah, so Miriam, you could add on to it, but I think as a learning designer, it's really useful to understand instructional design practices and have a deeper understanding of learning theories, constructivist learning theories particularly, behavioral learning theories particularly. It really helps. And we could pick up some of these topics in the later sessions, but broadly an understanding of instructional design and how learning really happens is extremely useful to get into the space of learning design. So you could also explore if there are any courses that you wish to join, which could help you understand what instructional design is. So Miriam, you want to add on something?
I think what you're saying is very valuable, and it's something that I personally feel I need to look into myself, like also the theories. I think on top of that, I would also reiterate the point of your own experience as an educator is also very valuable because you will be able to apply similar concepts on a wider scale. When you go into learning design. And also I think something that we'll talk about as we go along is that learning design can be a very broad concept. Just like as a teacher, you know, you're not just going into the classroom and teaching something. You're doing so much in the background, and both like your thought process behind creating things and then the tasks that you are applying. So you use many different of your educator skills when you're learning design.
All right, thank you so much, Dipti and Miriam, for helping us with that question. I think I saw another hand up. Was there someone else who raised their hand before? Or was it by mistake? I guess it was the last from me. Okay, all right. So we'll move on quickly. We're rounding up. And then I'll hand on. So what they said. Oh yeah, you want to ask a question?
Yes, I initially raised my hand, but the first speaker has spoken a line of it. So there is just about how to acquire the knowledge and the skill to actually be a good learning designer. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. So they already answered that question. And in addition to that, so while learning design is, you know, something that has to do with the mind, the mindset thing, right? There are also occupations that actually tailor to learning design, right? So some people are they work as learning designers, instructional designers, curriculum developers. You know, some people are educational game developers, right? And some just work as learning designers in other corporate organizations. Now, in the next sessions that we'll be having, we'll be bringing people who are specialists in these different fields also to come and share with you. So from the next set of sessions that we're going to have, you're going to also learn more from their own experiences. And for anyone looking to transition from the classroom to be a learning designer, either as an instructional designer, curriculum developer, and you know, every other terminology that is used in that field, you'll be able to learn how to go about it and to develop yourself to also be someone like that. All right, so last questions for Titi and Miriam, and then I would like if you can answer this in just 30 seconds so that we can leave as soon as possible. So Miriam and Titi, the last question I would like to answer is this. If you had to give just one tip to teachers in their learning design journey, what would it be? So Titi should go first this time, then Miriam will answer afterwards.
I always say this to teachers and to students who are embarking on their teaching journey. I think it's extremely powerful to have a reflective journal. So if you could note down what you do in the class and note down your challenges and start looking for answers and maintain a journal of your experiences, that can truly, truly change a lot of what happens in the classroom and in your own life. So I would strongly urge you to reflect on your classrooms. And like I said earlier, also please read experiences of teachers. Please talk to the community and please build your network. That's really, really useful. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Dipsy. Miriam, let's hear from you. One tip to help teachers in their learning design journey. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I iterate the point I shared earlier about thinking, what do I want my learners to get out of this? Especially because as teachers, we're juggling so many things, we're thinking about so many things, and we want to, get the job done. It really helps to recenter and think about the learners, because they are, at the end of the day, why we're.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for helping us with that question. So I hope that we've all learned a thing or two today. Our next session is going to be on June 8th. That's 2 weeks from now. And it's for sure going to be another wonderful experience. So I want you to save the date, mark your calendar, set the alarm. It's going to be the same time, 3 p.m. West African time in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Aisha says, I learned a lot. Beautiful. Now, before we go, I'd like us to take a quick picture. Shraddha, can you help us take a snap of those that are available in this session today? Please turn on your cameras, everyone, and be ready to say cheese. Shraddha, you there? I'd like you to anchor the picture taking.
Yes, I'm going to take one.
All right. Please enable your camera. I'll be sharing the picture in the chat so that you get to see yourself. And then you can share the experience on your social media platforms and say, well, I attended this very beautiful session with educators from different parts of the world, and this is what I learned at home. So be sure to enable your camera, give a very bright smile, like I'm doing right now.
Just a sec. I'm just going to move it to the second one. Yeah. First, just 10 more seconds. Gonna be done.
Keep smiling, keep smiling. If your smile is faded, do it again.
Okay,
Take a
I
deep
think we
breath
got
and
it.
smile again. Yay! So it's been a very, very beautiful acknowledge and appreciate our facilitators, Dixie and Miriam. I'd also like to especially appreciate the founder of the Learning Designers community, Shraddha, because she was the one that brought up this beautiful idea. Herself and the co-founder, Parisha. Parisha is not able to join us in today's session. And of course, I'd like to appreciate myself also for being open to collaborate with the Healthy Sleep community. And we're looking forward to more interesting sessions. Trust me, it's going to be very interesting. So you want to invite your friends, your colleagues to join in the next session. Of course, you already experienced it, so you know the quality and the value that you can gain from these sessions. And we're looking forward to seeing you again on Saturday, June 8th, 2024. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody. Bye. You can unmute yourself and say bye to us. We didn't hear a lot of our voices, so this is the time to just, let's hear your voice and say bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nima.
Bye, Victoria, Miriam, and Robert.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Hey,
Bye
bye-bye.
everyone. Bye, Jiru. Shraddha, I think we can end this session so that everybody can
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Good night and have a good evening, Victoria. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good evening.